Christ. Well, good evening. Well, thanks for having me again. I believe I was here last March or April. I was supposed to be here at the beginning of February, but we had an ice storm, and we had about 40 accidents within like a half hour before I left the rectory. So I had to call on my Father Liam and tell him I don't think I'm going to make it. I was with my friend Peter, who graduated from West Point, and up before drum. But he was with me and his girlfriend. We were going together here. And both his parents are cops in Yonkers. And it was like, they said, "You're crazy for going out in this high school." So on the way, he got a flat tire, bent his rim, so we had to turn around. And then I came, I believe it was maybe the first Friday of April. And not many people, I guess, came because of weather, so forgive me if I repeat myself, because I was told that, "Can you please tell your vocation story?" So this might be a little longer than a daily Mass homily. See, I'm leaving after this, so I don't have to worry about any letters. And Bishop Harris is not my bishop, so. Right. I'm reminded of during daily Mass, the priest came out, and the parishioner came to him and said, "Father, what happened to your face?" He said, "Oh, I was focused on shaving while I was thinking about my homily, and I cut myself." I said, "Well, next time, why don't you focus on shaving and cut your homily?" So this will be a little longer than a daily Mass homily. So thank you for your patience. Well, I'm not standing before you, and I have this chasuble I finally get to wear. I got this as a gift, ordination gift, St. Padre Pio. But I'm standing before you because, first of all, the Lord has called me. And I will, as short as possible, kind of tell you my vocation story. And it's really a love story. All of our vocations is a love story. And it really doesn't matter what we do, but how we do it. Some are called to marriage. Some are called to the single. Some are called to religious life or priesthood. It's like arguing what foot is better, the right or the left. They both get us where we have to be. But there's no doubt that we find what we're called to do, we find a great peace that only comes from the Lord. So I'll tell you first, I grew up in Yorktown Heights. My parents are from the Bronx. I moved up to Mayapack in the early 1980s, and then we moved to Yorktown. And my parents are high school sweethearts. But it almost didn't end up that way. They've been dating since 8th grade. And when they were going to get married, they had a huge wedding plan. My dad got cold feet, called it off. My mom was furious. So the summer of 1978, my dad begged my mom to see this movie, Grease. And 2 weeks later, they got married. So I'm here because of Grease. A little summer love. So here I am. So then we moved up to Mayapack in New York. I have 3 sisters. The second oldest, only boy. That's why I always go by Father Caroline. Keep the last name going. And as a family, we always went to Mass every Sunday. We were not a super devout family. Played a lot of sports growing up. Whenever we traveled, we went to Mass. We were vacationing out in Montauk. I remember always going to Mass. Actually, I just got back from Montauk yesterday. So I'm a little darker than last time. So we were just, I guess, ordinary nominal Catholics. I went to Catholic school to like first, second grade. I'm deaf in my left ear, completely deaf, born deaf. So my parents wanted they thought it'd be better if I go to public school, so they took me out, put me to public school. So most of my schooling is public school. I was never an altar boy growing up. I traveled. Baseball was my sport. I played football, basketball. Then one day in high school, I was sitting at my desk and I was thinking, what am I going to do with my life? I probably got a bad mark on a test. I was getting nervous. And I remember sitting at my desk thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And I was like in a daydream. It was like an inner voice, but I remember saying to myself, I'm going to be a priest. And in my mind's eye, I saw it. I walked out of the classroom and never thought about it again. And I graduated high school. I had like my first serious girlfriend. The Carolines were very picky. Even my sister Pam married her high school sweetheart. And now they got 7 kids. So I just got back from North Carolina as well, where my brother-in-law commands the 82nd Battalion. Just got back from Poland. So I was just down there with them. I just got back yesterday from my vacation. So she married her high school sweetheart. So I thought, all right, this is the thing to do. I got to settle down and wait for the right girl to take home to mom. And I found it. And we dated about 2 years, and we went to mass every Sunday to try to be good Catholics. One day I was driving with her, and we were going over a speed bump at a nice blue sports car, 60. And she mentioned something about the priesthood. I got a weird feeling. And it just came over me, not generated by thought, but I remember saying to myself, I should be doing that. Again, I turned down the street. I remember exactly where I turned. I never thought about it again. And then we broke up, just like, I guess many people go to college. She went off to Penn State. And I remember my mom saying, well, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. And I remember, obviously, being heartbroken. And I remember having a burn in my heart. And I knew it was God speaking to me. And I felt like I could love anyone in the whole world. My chest was literally felt like it was on fire. So I then decided I have to get out of here. I don't know, I'll go down south and find a nice southern town. So I go down south to North Carolina. I went to East Carolina University. And I was looking for that southern town. But the Lord had different plans. And I was tired of the college life. I remember my best friend, Matt, and I go out, and we go out and then say, you know what, this is kind of boring, let's go back and go to Blockbuster, get a movie. But what we were doing, I didn't have enough money to buy a TV. It was the first time in my life that I didn't have a TV. I usually grew up with a TV in my room. And when I went to bed, I would put the timer on, and you would hear, da-na-na, da-na-na. You know what that is? The sports center. Okay? So, it's the first time I didn't have a TV in my room. So my conscience was numb. My thoughts were much louder than usual. Many of us are shutting the Lord out, not hearing the Lord speak to us. So I started asking deeper questions about life. Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? And my friend and I would talk. I would still go to Mass on Sunday. Then after that first year, I remember he came home with a book. And he said, you're a little more religious than I am here. I found this book on Jesus. You want it? I said, sure. And then he says, well, I got to go back to New York. I ran out of money. I was like, what? So I had to stay to catch up with some credits. I took some classes in the summer, and I was reading this book on Jesus. Jesus the Carpenter, and then there's like 2 books in one, and then the Gospel. The words were just jumping off the page. I couldn't put it down. So I'm very close to my grandfather. I called him and said, hey, Pop, read this book on Jesus. A little lonely. Matt left. I'm all by myself in this apartment. And I remember he said, well, just pick up the rosary. Say a decade of the rosary. So I did. Read a decade of the rosary. And I would call him David. And then he said, when's the last time you got a confession? I said, Pop, examined my conscience. And it was a beautiful June day in North Carolina, St. Peter's. And I remember going to the church to go to confession. The doors were locked. I remember there was a little baby named Luke. I went into the church, they opened the doors, and I went to the confessional. I knelt down. I stuttered my sins. And I remember Father Patrick, he's from Long Island, lifted his hand to his offering. God, the Father of mercies. And I'll never forget that feeling. I felt the Lord go through me. I had an encounter with the Lord that was so powerful. I literally just floated out of the confession. I'll never forget that. Even as I tell that story, I see the tile, the green tile, the baptismal font. That was a great big turning point in my life. To say, wow, this is real. Sin is real. The Lord is real. Then I came that summer back up to New York and worked with my dad in Midtown Manhattan, where he ran buildings. And after my shift, I would go to St. Francis of Assisi on 31st Street, pray before the Lord, and then go to revival as the pub. Then go back to North Carolina. And this fall, I was flipping through the channels, and I would listen to Billy Graham. They didn't have EWTN at the time. But one day I saw a bishop on this Protestant channel. I was like excited. I was Catholic. And sure enough, there was a bishop sheet. And I would listen to him every Tuesday night. And I looked him up. And I found an MP3 catechism. And I listened every night. And all the questions I had in life, he answered. Then I started reading his books. Then I graduated from East Carolina, and I came back to New York to go to grad school in Manhattan for phys ed. And when I started grad school, my brother-in-law Tim was in Iraq. My sister had one child at the time and pregnant with her second. So we converged our living room into a big bedroom, and Jeffrey took over my room. But also during this time, my father, the owner of the buildings that he ran, sold them. So he was out of work. And then that was 2008. And in 2008, 9, 10, 11, my dad still didn't have work. And I was getting serious. Because I remember after one of my school years when I was a phys ed teacher, I flew to Tennessee. Visit my sister with her kids. My brother when I was in Afghanistan. And we were worried about my dad. Because it's been 4 years now, he still can't find work. We have big bills, big taxes, kids in college. And I went to go to sleep, and I had a card with me. That reminds me of this card, of Padre Pio. And I would pray to him. You know, before I went to bed, just say a little prayer to Padre Pio for my dad. And when I went to go to sleep one night, I couldn't fall asleep. I just kept thinking Padre Pio. So I was getting a little restless, so I got up, I went down to the office, and I started to look up books, buy books on Padre Pio, and I was reading quotes. I remember reading this one book. They asked Padre Pio, they said, Padre Pio, before you leave us, you die, what advice do you have for us? And he said, love the Madonna, pray the rosary every day. So I said, all right, I'm going to make a promise. I'm going to pray the rosary every day from this moment on. So thanks be to God, that day, this day, I haven't missed a day. So I prayed the rosary, the books came in, I started reading it. And I flew back to New York. When I came back to New York, my dad said, Bobby, I need you to help me. We got to paint the house. I got to sell it. I can't afford it. I said, all right. So like 2 lines, and then here we go. Few stubborn Irish guys. So that whole summer, we sanded the house, caulked the house, on ladders. Times when I was just holding ladders, so this might be a good time to mention something else. Because my father and I, we never really talked about religion. We never talked about the faith. But I knew he was down and depressed. I said, Dad, we have to have hope. We'll get through this. Because I would go to Mass every morning. And one time my dad came up to me and said, what are you doing? Where are you going? I And I was reading this book on Padre Pio, and I came across a story of a man named Tom Harriman. His name is spelled the same way as my last name. So I thought, I'll share this with my dad. So I shared this story with my dad, this man from Ireland who had encountered Padre Pio. My dad just listened, didn't say anything. I showed a video of Padre Pio. My dad never heard of him. And that night I went to the city to visit a friend. This is around August 7th, 2011. And I slept over in my friend's apartment. I woke up, I went to Mass at St. Ignatius of Loyola on Park Avenue. Then I went back to Grand Central. I got on a train, and then I head back up to Yorktown. My dad picked me up. We went out to a pub, had a beer and a burger, came home. I remember I was like really tired. I went to go take a nap, and my mom came flying in my room. Kind of out of breath. I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "You won't believe what I saw this morning." I said, "What?" She said, "I was walking in the bathroom, and I saw a monk sitting in a computer chair, praying the rosary." I said, "What?" She said, "I walked by the room, and I said, no, did I really see that?" Looked at it again, and there he was, Padre Pio, sitting in my computer chair, with his hand, the rosary in his hands like this. And my mom was scared. She heard a voice. He said, "I am with you." And then she ran off. And obviously when I heard that, I was like, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, God even hears your thoughts. I wasn't seeking any signs or anything. I was just praying from my heart. And that fall, I remember, I just felt like Forrest Gump. I was like, I just gotta run. I don't know what's going on in my life. Is the Lord really calling me to be a priest? No way I'm going to be a priest. I'm just a dumb job. So, in our state park by my hometown, I started running. I remember coming home, I told my mom, I ran 3 miles without stopping. Maybe I'll run a marathon. This will keep me from chores in the house. So, I trained for the Philadelphia Marathon. And I ran the Philadelphia Marathon. And after the marathon, I met someone, another girl, or one I dated in Stanford, Connecticut. We sat down at the restaurant. She asked me, "Who's your favorite saint?" I said, "Padre Pio." She said, "That's so funny." She goes, "I had a dream of him the other night, and there was a young man praying by the tabernacle, and he told me to pray for him." I said, "Really?" I do a holy hour every day. I was fortunate where I taught, my prep time, I could go spend time in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Where I went back to my apartment, I would find a perpetual adoration chapel. I was always doing a holy hour. Praying, "Lord, what are you calling me?" So then I knew definitely being called. So that day was over. So then I went on different discernment retreats. I discerned with the Capuchins. I think we have one here, brother, somewhere. But I felt actually meeting, Father Pio Mendadas. Okay, so I came to a church in my hometown. And I sat down in the confession room and kind of just said, "Here, Padre, this is my story. I need help and guidance on where to go." And I realized after discerning that, okay, I probably maybe have a Franciscan spirituality, but I got a diocesan personality. So I said, all right, I think the Archdiocese is my home. So then I applied and I got in. Never did I ever tell my parents. For 15 years of having thoughts of priesthood, I never told them once. Because I didn't think, my dad definitely would not be too supportive because just the way he grew up, he had a friend that was molested by a priest. And just the stories that they knew and heard, he just probably wanted to protect them. So I served my first Mass at 31 years old, the first Mass. And I remember Father Matt Ryman, after mentioned that I got into Douglas, the minor house. this time, my parents still did not know. So at this time, my sister Pam, my brother-in-law Tim were living at West Point. My brother-in-law was teaching philosophy. So after that, it was, remember, Memorial Weekend, so I went to West Point. And I was talking to my sister. She said, "You gotta tell Mom and Dad. You guys accepted this." I said, I don't know, I really. So I said, all right, I'll do it today. So on the way back from West Point, I stopped at this point. We were renting a place. And I said my prayer for and I watched Blue Bloods for an hour before I said anything. I finally had the courage. I said, "Dad, you mind pausing this? I remember it was on DVR. I have to tell you something." He said, "Yeah, what's up?" I said, "I want to show that I applied to the seminary and I got in." He said, "As a deacon?" I said, "No, God willing, as a priest." He goes, "Oh, wow, yeah, I didn't grow over the top of this religious stuff. Never been in the same as you should grow up and carry." I said, "Dad, listen." And all I said was, "Padre Pio has let me know this is what the Lord wants." So we got up and he gave me my Papa Jim's prayer book, which after we moved and cleaned out the attic, I found it. This is my dad's dad, who died when he was like 3. World War II vet, really Catholic gentleman. And he gave me his prayer book, and at a nerves, I opened it up. And right in the middle was a prayer card of Padre Pio with a date, May 25th. It was May 25th that day. That's Padre Pio's birthday.
Wow.
So I've only seen my dad cry twice, and that was the second time. The first time was when his mother passed away, my grandma Ann. I never saw my dad. So I was about to say make a long story short, but this is pretty long. Don't worry, this is years of purgatory, so you'll thank me. So then I get in the seminary. And it's funny how God works. He got a great sense of humor. When I moved in, and I wanted my dad to help me move in. And one of the priests was our head spiritual director, Father Joe Kelly. The day my grandma Ann died, August 29th, my dad helped me move in. And who we run into? Father Joe Kelly, who presided over my grandma Ann's funeral mass in 1995. That's 20 years. So my dad's like, that's Joe Kelly. He was the pastor at St. Anthony's in Common, Bronx. Presided over the grandma Ann's funeral. So I finished my 2 years of philosophy. And actually, the last year, a couple of us, the heart of Padre Pio came to Boston. Cardinal Sean O'Malley had it come. And in a rainstorm, I drove up there. What a miraculous medal. I touched the heart of Padre Pio, and I gave it to my mom. I said, "Here, Mom, you keep this." So then I entered St. Joseph Seminary, Dunwood, for theology. And the first year, actually, the relatives of Padre Pio came to seminary. And my dad came. And he knew nothing about, like, if you touch something, it becomes a third-class relic, you touch a first-class relic. He sees all these people touching stuff. But he surprised me, because I was up there cleaning the relic, we have to do a venerate. He came up and he took his wedding ring off, touched it, put it on. So my first summer I was sent to Staten Island. Everywhere I went, Padre Pio was there, a nice statue. My second summer, they sent me up to Poughkeepsie, St. Mary's. Actually, there's 3 parishes. St. Mary's, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and St. Joseph. And Father Perez, the pastor, called me and said, "I want you to meet me at Mount Carmel." I walked into the church, right on the Hudson River, huge statue of Padre Pio. I belong there. Then July 1st, I got a call around 5:30 in the morning. My sister Christine, that my dad had a massive stroke. And I got dressed, ran to the church, said a prayer, this most beautiful crucifix. And I rushed to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital and I met with the neurosurgeon, he said, "It doesn't look good, there's a lot of damage." He said, "The chances of your dad surviving are very slim. We have to wait about within 72 hours. So they went in to retrieve the clot, it was an ischemic stroke, and they said, now we have to wait. There was so lodged in there that it might bleed on the brain. And then that evening it did. So then we had to make another decision. Cut the skull off and swell it. So we did. Cut the skull, throw it away. And then we stormed heaven. As soon as I got to the hospital, I put a picture of the holy face, Padre over my dad's head. And we prayed. We prayed. I have 12 nieces and nephews. I remember waking up, and I remember that night, July 1st, I slept on my dad's side of the bed, and everything was heightened, all the smells. And I don't really remember my dream, but I had a vivid dream my dad jumping up and down. So I didn't know if he died. I woke up the next morning, and I was making a cup of coffee, and I heard my two nieces playing in the playroom, and my niece Claire said to Juliana, "What are you doing?" And she's 4 years old. So we went in to check to see what Juliana was up to, and she was on her knees in the corner praying for Papa. Very beautiful image of a little girl praying for her grandfather. But then thanks be to God, as we're putting ice on my dad, controlling the fevers, the ICU. I remember reading on the screen when the nurse said, "Prepare for palliative care." I said, "No, we're gonna pray. Our God is a God of life." Took him a week before he opened one eye. Straight, feeding tube. Then after 3 weeks, he finally got an ICU. And now we had to get into acute rehab. And every place we applied, they denied us. There's only one place that took him in. That was Helen Hayes in Rockland County. Now this all happened in Danbury, Connecticut. So now we have to go back to New York. And then we realized this is serious because my dad's going to be severely disabled for the rest of his life. So we had to meet with lawyers and have to liquidate his IRA. And during this time, one of the lawyers said, "Well, it's better that you stay in New York because the laws are much more favorable in Connecticut. If you can take that little money you have and find a place, put it in real estate, you can protect it. Otherwise, you have to carry it." So we did. And we're on Zillow, whatever the website is. And we found a place in my hometown, Yorktown. So we said, "Oh, we know this complex, Jefferson Village. 55 other complex." So we go. When we get there, the realtor, all the other condos have steps, except for this one. Then we see the address, 95 Hollow Picture Lane, Union Beach. Well, that sounds familiar. My grandma and my dad's mom lived in the same exact unit in 1995. We moved her up from the Bronx. In May of 95, she fell out of the bed, died in August. I'm like, wow, Grandma and I lived in this unit. We opened the door, and there was a picture of Padre. And the date was August 10th. That's the day that they ordained the priest. So I said, all right, I gotta get this. Now I'm sharing very top secret stuff. This is not going to be lodged right. It's under the seal of confession. But I was short, 30, 50 grand. I'm a seminary, now I'm starting back. And they probably thought he's going to leave. There's no way this kid can stay here. But something told me, no, I just got to trust in God. It's the devil that doesn't want you to be a priest. I got to trust in the Lord. And there was one priest that kept coming to the hospital. And I remember him saying, "Bobby, if you need anything, I'm here for you. Remember, you're not alone." So he came up to me and he said, "How's everything going with your situation?" I said, "Well, say for I need to get a loan for like 30, 50 grand. It's not going well. My dad's a stay-at-home mom. Stay-at-home mom, the bank won't give us a loan. We could go to some rich people and try to pay them back at a low interest, but they want a higher interest." And And the story came to me. You know that story when there's a man who was like in a hurricane and he's drowning and he's praying to God to save him? And like a boat comes and goes, no, God's going to save him. No, God's going to save him. And then he dies and he goes to heaven and he goes, well, where were you? They're going to save me. He says, I didn't take a boat, a helicopter. And that story came to me. I said, this priest is the boat. So I said, all right, Padre, all right, I'll take it. I'll take it on great. I have so much on my shoulder right now. I don't know how I'm ever going to pay it back. God will provide. So, go to the bank, certified check, close on the feast, St. Michael, September 29th. Now we got to start getting on Medicaid. Get the condo. We had no insurance. Actually, the county we live in denied us. So we had to do a loophole, try to find somewhere else. So I had no insurance. My dad for like 8 months. Literally collecting money in a shoebox. Then COVID hits. But that about. And then my dad's going to be sent to the hospital to trach. He was bleeding during COVID. So it was you just wonder, how much do you take? And I always go to Our Lady. The rosary is so powerful. So powerful. It's my favorite prayer. And we're getting ready for Our Lady's birthday next week. It's in the church. But our Lord can't say no to Our Lady. So I kept going to Our Lady. Then I got a phone call from an old neighbor. So I wanted a new car. The new car I was driving, the ex-girlfriend. My dad said, you want a new car? You got to earn it. So I said, all right. So I put out flyers in my neighborhood and I started washing cars. And I made good money. One made wash cars. I made like $5,000. Every Saturday I wash a car. But one of these neighbors called me. I haven't seen him in 20-some years. He said, Bobby, what are you doing this Saturday? I thought you were a phys ed teacher. I said I was. Now God had other plans. So he's like, come over, I want to talk to you about something. So I go over. And he asked me again, how's your dad? What's the latest? And then I told him our whole story. And he said something very interesting. He said, do you owe anybody money? Now, I won't say his name, but let's just say he was a big CEO of a big company. A good man, a Vietnam vet. And I said, yeah, I actually do. I owe so much to this priest. And he said, all right, I'm going to pay him back. I said, what? I said, oh, I'll pay you back then. He said, no, all I want you to do is pray for me and my family. He said, I was in Vietnam on my knees, begging the Lord to save me. And look how much He has blessed me. So pray for my family. And I do every day. God provides. And my dad's still in a nursing home. But the first time he came out was my ordination, May 29, 2021, St. Patrick's Cathedral. So I'm grateful to the Lord and for Padre Pio. He's always showing up. And I really feel almost like embarrassed to say it, but I feel like someone asked me, what is it like being a priest? I said, I'm like a spectator around life. I don't really belong here. But I definitely feel peace. This is what the Lord has called me. So to my classmates, I wanted to go and thank Padre Pio. I can thank him right now and pray anywhere, but I wanted to go to San Giovanni Rotondo. So this past February, I went. And we got to Rome, to my classmates, said Mass, right, sanctified St. Peter's bones. We went to visit St. Paul VI, because we were ordained on his feast day. And then we took a 4-hour drive to San Giovanni Rotondo. On the way back, halfway there, I stopped at Menapella. This is the Holy Face of Menapella. I wrote my thesis on the Holy Face. I love the Holy Face. I want to see the face of Jesus. I want to see the face of Jesus in each one of you. I want people to see the face of Jesus in me. seek the face of God. I'll tell you how I became devoted to the Holy Face. After my first semester in philosophy, I failed Latin. The professor gave me a D, and then he failed me. I was like, what? I've been out of school for 7 years. I don't know declensions and stuff. I'm a physics teacher. And I was really down, but my room, I shared a wall with the chapel. So I remember going to the chapel and saying, Lord, I need your help. Do I really belong here? Can I do this? And again, the inner voice told me, I heard him say, do you love me? Do you love me? Keep your eyes on me. When I walked out of the chapel, on the wall was the image of the shroud. So like this image. I said, I gotta keep my eyes on Jesus. And then from that moment on, that's when my dad stroked. I said, I gotta keep my eyes on Jesus. My eyes on Jesus. And I did my thesis, 75 pages, on the Holy Face. And I wrote about the Holy Face in that pillow, which they believe is the cloth that was above over the shroud. So I got to see it personally. Well, Benedict went in 2006. Then from there, I went to San Giovanni Rotondo to see Padre Pio. I got to say Mass, the same altar that Padre Pio said Mass. After I said Mass, a Italian woman came up to me and said, I see Padre Pio behind you. I said, what? She said, she took a picture, and in the tabernacle, the door was open. You see the face of Padre Pio. When I first got to the parish, I met Annunciation of Lady of Fatima in Prescott. A woman 95 years old. So the daughter said, we've been calling every priest, no one returns our phone call. Will someone come and anoint my mom before she dies? I said, all right, I'll go. I went to the house. Right next to her was Padre Pio. I anointed her, she died the next day. So he's always showing up. The saints choose us. The saints, as John Paul II said, are our friends. Soon we're going to be shifting to the altar. The saints are with us. Your loved ones. Padre Pio said, you want to see your loved ones? Go to the Blessed Sacrament. There with Jesus. Because just while we bring bread and wine to the altar, bread made of a multiplicity of wheat is crushed. And maybe you feel crushed. I feel crushed. Wine is made of a multiplicity of grapes and is crushed and becomes wine. So we who are many become one in Christ. And on this first Friday, where we honor the Sacred Heart, as we process, I can see your face. You want to touch Jesus, like the hemorrhaging woman wanted to touch him. Love there's three intimacies for love. We would never know if someone loved us if they never told us. So first, there's speech. I love you. The second is we see love. We see love at work with our eyes. We look. And the third is touch. That's what that woman did. Every time she wanted to touch me. I always said, I felt the power come out from you. No power can ever be communicated without the loss of energy, either physical or spiritual. I recently, like this story too. So one boy in our parish, for his Eagle Scout, made a shrine to Padre Pio. I got a call. His mom did 21, she had cancer. It metastasized. I went, heard her confession, anointed her, and I bought a relic of Padre Pio and blessed her. Then, a couple weeks later, on May 25th, went back to White Plains Hospital. She was not doing well. I anointed her again, and her husband was there, her sister, hysterical crying. And she held my hand, and she wouldn't let go. She wouldn't let go. Then she died on May 29th, my anniversary. But again, May 25th is Padre Pio's birthday. 57 years old, but Padre Pio was there guiding me. He's there guiding me. And he's guiding us where? Closer to Jesus. Someone once said to Padre, I think I love him more than Jesus. He said, you only say that because Jesus is in it. Remember, Jesus is saying to us, give me your time, I will give you my eternity. Give me your humanity, I will give you my divinity. Give me all of you. So, before you wanted to touch him, he wants to touch you, and soon you'll be coming to receive him. Body, blood, soul, divinity. His blood will be in your blood. Mary's blood will be in your blood. Because Mary gave him a human nature. This is our faith. This is why it says 365 times in the Bible, do not fear. Perfect love casts out all fear. We live in troubled times. That's true. But we shouldn't fear because we got the Lord. If we live, he's with us. If we die, we're with him. But he never leaves us. So on this first Friday, we honor the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We give thanks to Padre for his constant yes to Jesus. He still had a free will, even though we love to hear about the miracles, the way he moves. But I'm reading a book now, some people didn't realize they never saw any extraordinary things because you've got to find God in the ordinary. God is in the ordinary. We don't have to look for an extraordinary. What we just have to do is give him our heart. So give him your heart. It's a good trade. The Bishop She said, would you want to be for all eternity or would you want to be the Lord? Our identity is in Christ. We came from him. Called to go back to him. Adam and Eve, what did they wrong? They snatched, tried to be like God. They ran from him. The one thing they forgot to do is to love him. This was the same, this is the definition of the same, someone who makes Christ love him. That's what we want to do. The world needs that more than ever. It needs saints.